meeting to order. So again, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our August meeting. Mr. Adolfo is on as well. Welcome, Adolfo. So I'm so excited to at least be here with you in Zoom. I'm looking forward to being with you in person, hopefully within the next month or two. We do have meeting minutes, but I don't believe we have a quorum. So am I correct on that, our director, Miss Wanda? Do we have a quorum or not? No. Okay. So we can table the minutes for now, and I'll move on, and I will try to refrain from being a history professor and keep my reports short. So I have 4 items. The first is our Juneteenth event. So I just really want to thank and celebrate our staff. It was just wonderful to see what Miss Erica Simon accomplished for the whole community. And I know she wouldn't bring anything to, she wouldn't tell anybody. She's very humble, but she really organized the whole event with all of the different vendors and groups. And I think this year it was very, very well organized. It's always been organized, but I was especially impressed. And that was all because of Erica. And she was there for us. Miss Sheila and I were there together. I did not see any of our other committee members, but we had so much fun hanging out with the staff. Miss Carlin was there, I believe Miss Mary, Adolfo, and Miss Sharita. So we really had a fun time. And there was just such positive energy. And so I just wanted to thank Miss Sheila from our committee and all of our wonderful staff for making that day very special, representing the city and being there for AAHI. For those who weren't able to join, one new special thing was that the Human Resources Commission folks were also with us. And since we're working with them more strategically now, it was great to just all be together. So thank you, everyone. And I think Miss Erica and Miss Sheila and I got some ideas for next year that we have a year to plan and maybe think creatively and collectively over the course of this year for how we can really use the city's Juneteenth celebration to network and to celebrate what we represent, to uplift our community, and just really get the word out there about what our mission and vision is for AAHI. One of the things that Erica and Sheila and I noticed was that some of our other groups that we work with, for instance, the Rooted in Race group was out, and they had wonderful, many wonderful sort of poster boards that really stood out. Triad Cultural Arts also had some wonderful public history posters, and we didn't have anything like that. So obviously we support everyone. We're not in competition, but we might think about a creative way for next year to really show who we are. Miss Sheila and Miss Erica and I, we really came to the conclusion, some of us started thinking about this last year, but the music and all the wonderful music, was a blessing, and it just brought so much joy. All the different wonderful talented groups, but the music is very loud, and so even if we close the door, it's great. We have our own space every year, but if we close the door, the music is so loud that it's impossible to collect the oral histories there on site. So we should move away from that unless we were to move into a different building, but think about some other creative ways. So just want to plant that seed, and there's a lot of creativity in this group. And so let's think together for how we can really celebrate together next year, because it was a lot of fun. And Miss Sheila, did you want to add anything, or Miss Erica, Miss Carlin, Miss Mary, Adolfo, so you were there. Any thoughts, any suggestions, anything you want to say about Juneteenth?
Good afternoon, everyone. Chairperson Villa Gomez, thank you so very much for those wonderful accolades, but it was a team. I was the coordinator for the inside, but I cannot take credit for all of the work that our entire team did. So I'm very still full from the work that was done and the people that had a wonderful time and all the people I encountered. So thank you very much, but I cannot take all the credit for that. I will say I agree with you. We had the conversation about it's just way too loud. And so we have to figure out a better way to get people engaged on that day. And so maybe we can walk around and do surveys and talk to people, sign people up. I came across a post on social media. I used to live in Canton, Ohio, and their library has a project and they're kind of doing the same thing. And so they had large display banners and things, letting people know that this is the place that you can come and do your submit your history. They were doing history collections, not necessarily oral history, but more documents and things. But they had quite a bit of signage. So that's one thing to think about. In addition, like I said, maybe we can have people walking around with a clipboard, just kind of asking people if they would be willing to do that, and then getting their information, and then maybe following up with them later to set up an appointment. Because I don't know that they would be ready to set up an appointment that day, but at least, approaching them and asking if they would be willing, and then gathering their information to set up appointments for later.
Thank you, Miss Erica. And we actually, Miss Beverly Williams and Miss Annette Wilson did that last year. Last year, the music was not as loud. And I believe, were able to record 4 really precious, very interesting, rich oral histories. And what Miss Annette and Miss Beverly did was really go around and network. They really know our community, and they saw old friends and classmates and colleagues, and so they ended up doing just that. And I was so blown away by the oral histories we collected last year. So that networking is so important, and if we can work in teams next year, but hopefully the music won't be quite as loud, and then but we don't know that, and we can't really control that. So I think if we just bring attention to ourselves with those poster boards and some of us circulating, Miss Erica, that's a wonderful suggestion. So,
yes, so
we need more than 2 of the AAHI members, though, and so hopefully next year, if we can have at least 3 or 4 of our members, I think we could accomplish what you've suggested.
And every year, honestly, because it grows or something else happens and we have to change the layout, that's why the music changes every year. So a lot of times it's beyond our control how we have to set up the music. So that's kind of why it's not the same level every year.
Yes. And it was easier to circulate this year. There were fewer vendors, and that may be why the music sounded louder too, because there were fewer people and things to kind of absorb. But it was easier to kind of move around, and it really allowed those other groups that had their beautiful flyers and posters and everything set up to really have that visibility, and they were really educational pictures and little history quotes, and I learned a lot. They really popped, and so we might want to think about pulling some pictures and just being strategic and thinking about some important people and places and events that maybe not too many people talk about. We all know where the talking points are, where the focal points are right now in our beautiful, beloved Black community's history. So maybe we want to think about educating and bringing attention back to some very important but now obscure people and places. So that might be something. We'll see what the wish of the committee is. But again, thank you. It was a blessed and wonderful day. I had a wonderful time. So I will move on to the next item. Mr. Flynn and I had some wonderful meetings with the human resources officers. And so we've made great progress with the We Built This series of events. Next month, when he returns, he can tell you more about the official agreement now that we have, the memorandum, I guess, of understanding between our library and I believe the city, so that Winston-Salem State's library will house the collection after it moves out of Union Station and out of the Coliseum Annex. So we'll be able to keep the whole collection in our city for 2 months at this point. So that's all been worked out and approved. So as I've been getting email updates over the summer from the officers or the directors from HRC, what they're suggesting is that on February 1st, we will have the big grand opening at Union Station, and Councilperson Scipio, the mayor, and other dignitaries will be there to really open the event. And we might have one keynote speaker that day. The next day, Friday the 2nd, still at Union Station, we might have some panels going all day. Well, we will have panels of people speaking, hopefully some Winston-Salem State students. I shouldn't say hopefully. There will be Winston-Salem State public history interns who will be bringing attention to specific buildings or builders. That will be one of the things they'll work on in the fall. So they'll be ready to go with that in February. And then our last day in Union Station will be Saturday the 3rd. And so I thought it might be nice if each of our committee members, as they lead the subcommittees on particular events, might want to organize a panel of community speakers and really just do a roundtable of talking about builders and building and buildings related to what is of great interest to them. So that's just one thought. But then as we move over to the annex later that month, and then as we are going to be in Winston-Salem State's library, we have the archive. We could also open up the meeting room Fridays or Saturdays from my department of history and politics and social justice. We have a wonderful meeting room. Councilperson Scipio has been there for some public history presentations. And that might be a nice kind of warm place to continue events and invite community members so we can collect histories and documents and photos. So that's where we are. I'm just so excited that we will have this ongoing collection, that we can build wonderful events and community building events around, and very positive, sort of uplifting ideas. I've spent a lot of time this summer doing research so I can direct the students in the right way, and so that I can be a resource to all of you. And the HRC folks are really helping me as well. So they've come up with a couple questions that we might want to collectively help to answer. Basically, who built Winston-Salem? And I know from other meetings this summer, I learned that Old Salem in the earliest days was built by the enslaved men, mainly enslaved men who were in the Moravian communities in Bethania and Bethabara. So, of course, we grieve that they were enslaved, but we celebrate and honor them because they built the oldest part of Salem. So I just want to cry when I think about that. But I don't believe that that story is told very often. And the descendants of the Bethania freedmen and the enslaved people know those stories, but so do some of the great scholars of Moravian Salem, who always want to give credit where credit is due. So I'm here for you. If you have a question, you can call me or email me and say, Cynthia, I want to know about this. Can you help me on locate this? And I will work with you on that. So when Mr. Flynn comes back next month, he'll be able to update you more, but I am so grateful to him because he is working on our behalf all the time and making us a priority. The third item is that I met with Dr. Mike Wakeford, who's the director of Muse Winston-Salem, over in the new site, which I want to commend Councilperson Scipio. Mike is so grateful to her for helping Muse locate that wonderful site that is something like 13,000 square feet. And I see your hand, Councilperson, so I'll be quiet in a minute, but I just wanted to let you know that he was so grateful. And what he said was that once the museum is totally up and running and all the renovations are done, we will be able to host events like our previous redlining event, and like this, we built this event, and there's ample parking and ample space. So that I see that we need to continue to work with Muse. They are very, very supportive of us and supportive of our interns. And so they're 1,000% behind us, and they want to be there for us as we bring these outside exhibits. So the other thing is that they introduced me to the history, and Councilperson Scipio and Miss Annette Wilson, you might know about this collection. I believe over a period of years in the maybe late 80s and 90s, there was a woman, and I don't recall her name, I forgot to write it down, but she recorded many, many histories of the lead Black women leaders, the movers and shakers at that time. And that collection has just been sitting. a few months ago, some of the UNCSA students transcribed some of those materials, but Dr. Wakeford would like to see us all work together. And I was thinking maybe in next March, which is going to be Women's Month, we could do something. And so we'll be able to, I think he wants us to put maybe those collections and the transcriptions into our AAHI website. So again, I'm just, we have many women and you're native here. So I would love to see you take the lead and just go with your heart and your memories and take that project over. But Councilperson Sippy, I promise to be quiet. So I know you're gonna give us great suggestions.
Well, thank you, Dr. Villa-Gomez. I appreciate your report. I just had a couple of questions as well as a little more information to make sure we don't lose sight of. With the We Built This exhibition, 3 days are going to be in Union Station. And then does the exhibit move to the annex and it's going to be there on exhibit with just for people to come in and see it? Is that the plan?
Well, great question. The plan is to still have other events so when it's at the annex, again, our committee members, we may be able to get a couple local historians. You might want to speak that day. We really have flexibility and time to prepare. Do you have some thoughts about what?
I want to know how long is it to be at the annex, and then when it goes to Winston-Salem State, is it going to be open for the public again, and then how long?
Yeah, so the reason it'll go to the annex, I believe, for 2 weekends. And so part of that is because when we agreed to get the exhibit, it, of course, like the redlining exhibit, there has to be security.
Right.
And then there'll be security over at Winston-Salem State. So it's great that we'll have it for a whole month at Winston-Salem State. So hopefully we can get the general community, all of the RAMs, the students, staff, and faculty and administration to go in and see the exhibit. But the annex will be a great place to really bring in the broader community. And of course, we know that the parking will be easier there at the Coliseum than at Winston-Salem State. So we're going to be targeting sort of different groups. So, you know, there still is a possibility that we could get DJR or one of the other auditoriums if we plan that because if it turns out that Councilperson Scipio, you know some people that are from out of town but would want to come back and speak, and we could get a large enough group, then we could definitely get a larger place for a few days, or at least one day, one weekend. So I think the world is open to us right now. And
so the two suggestions or things I want you to put as you go with discussions with the planning team is that George Black's bricks. George Black was a brick mason, and his bricks are in use today in various buildings in Winston-Salem. So when it comes to who built Winston-Salem, just a tour or photo exhibit of all the buildings that still have his bricks would be a phenomenal kind of thing to include. The other thought is that we oftentimes think of the past when we do these exhibits. Who did what? This is an ideal time to have people talk about what should our future be? What do we need to be building in Winston-Salem, in neighborhoods? Having people talk about a vision for what we want our history to be 50 years from now might be a very interesting experience. Instead of always looking at the past, let's start shaping the future. And so I think that would be a really interesting kind of twist that this exhibit could bring about. There's also a thought of having Black architects along with traditional we have so many architects in town, but there are very few Black architects in the state, in the nation. But it would be great to see if we can tap into some of the outstanding Black architects that are in our state and in the nation. And we have a very good entree to that. The chairman of Walter Robbs, Callahan and Pierce, well-known architecture firm here. Their chair is an African-American man, Wesley Curtis. And Wesley has been involved in a lot of commercial buildings here, but he would also be a great person who would be able to give us some leads on the African-American influence in cities across the nation, and be part of bringing, sometimes we need to hear what's going on in other cities and states to see what we can do here. How do we preserve our history, but how do we integrate the past into the future? So I think if we think in terms of trying to shape something for that, some kind of discussion would be a wonderful thing. I also like to hold the general population accountable. There's a big architecture group. It's mostly white. They don't really put a lot of energy to get African Americans included, but it's probably because we don't speak to a need and make them aware. So we need to get that architects group, and I'll get you the name of it. They need to play a real role in this exhibit. It's a membership organization. They give out these wonderful awards every year, but we need to get them involved in this if we're going to change how the world looks going forward. We have to be intentional about doing things to help shape things. So the other place is we need to include the architect department at North Carolina A&T State University, because they are training young people to be architects, and they have a very big program over there. And I do know some of their graduates. Matter of fact, one of my cousins is a practicing architect in Durham, and he's been for years. And so graduating from A&T. So those are the kinds of people we can bring here to have that, start having the discussion. So how do we impact the future by laying seeds now towards equity and inclusion? That would be a wonderful kind of exhibit to start doing that. I do not know the collection that Muse is talking about the interviewing of women. I'm not familiar with that, but there were several efforts made in the late 80s. I remember they had and I think the Winston-Salem Foundation has those stories. We really still need to investigate getting those. StoryCorps came to Winston, which was, I think it was part of NPI. They had a trailer going around getting people's stories. And we need to sort of hook up with that and find out about that. But I'm not real sure about the collection that you were talking about that Mike Wakefield spoke to. one of the things about Muse, for everybody to know, is that one of the reasons why I supported that museum is that it's to be a city-focused museum, focused on things that were happening here, and that it would integrate our history with the general history of the city. And so that was part of the discussion I had, and had some agreement on that, but we have to always remind people of what was the intent and where they should be moving forward towards. But it's up to us to keep people mindful of that, and help them to do what they said they were going to do. Now we're going to have the cultural center at Happy Hill at some point. It won't be anytime within the next 2 years. This exhibit won't impact that, but I do think that they could be brought in, particularly on that exhibit, to make a connection for us that would also benefit them in making African-American program and being inclusive. So I think that's another, make sure that I would hope they're involved in if they need another committee person, that's Cheryl Harry should be included on that in planning that exhibit. So we can always connect the pieces of persons who are doing things on our behalf, that is African-American behalf, and our history.
Thank you very much for all of those wonderful suggestions and insights. And you always give us great history lessons. I always learn so much from you. I did want to say that Heather and Michelle from HRC, I believe, have already reached out to George Black's wonderful granddaughter, Evelyn. And I believe Evelyn,
yes, it's Representative Evelyn Terry. Yeah.
Yes. Ms. Terry will be the keynote speaker. That right now is what's in the works. And so Mr. Black will be definitely probably the main highlight. But the other things that you've raised, I think, are so important. They really align with the fact that we are a reparative justice project. That's something that has been part of who we are from the beginning. Our city's reparations resolution has held AAHI accountable to that. And so, as you know, then we need to talk about repairing the hurt, the destruction. And so how can we build so that we uplift? And also, we have lost, just even in this year, I saw newspaper articles in which you were quoted, Councilperson Scipio, about certain buildings that have now been condemned because they were allowed to just decay, so that it's impossible to save them. And they were a major, they were part of the vibrant Black business district. And it is just a tragedy. It's terrible that we've lost those buildings. So I think we can use this whole project and exhibition to prevent more of that as well. But thank you for we hadn't even thought about architects who are from here and maybe were trained other places. And so bringing them back would be great. So thank you so much.
Chairperson Villa-Gomez?
Yes, ma'am.
And Councilmember Scipio, I know that not long ago, you remember the Storyline project and the conversations? Yeah. It's my understanding that Michelle had marketing, specifically, I believe, Larry Bell, to digitize some of those conversations that you were mentioning. I think he worked on it as recently as last week.
Oh,
And so,
really?
yes,
Okay.
yes, ma'am. And so some of those conversations have been digitized, and the van that would go around and collect those stories, I think that it may be possibly on the campus of Wake Forest University, but I don't know who owned the van. I don't know, but I just wanted to mention that because Larry Bell did advise me of that. So I don't know a lot more beyond this information. And if Mr. Bell is on, I would welcome him to chime in. Or, as better yet, we also have Mary Junka on. I just saw Mary. Sorry, Mary.
Yeah.
Mary Junka is the new Deputy Director for Marketing and Communications. And so Mary may even be able to chime in as well about the storyline situation.
Well, I'm going to wait and see if Larry replies. Wanda, thank you for that, but let me make one correction. I am still the deputy. I did not go for the director job. That
oh, I said deputy. I know Veronique George is your director.
Veronique,
yeah.
I hope you'll all get to meet Veronique George soon. She comes to us from Salem College and Academy. I think she's going to do terrific things for our department and help make our systems more efficient and things. So yeah, I'm taking some notes. I'll ask. I don't see Larry stepping up. He may have just turned the equipment on and then had to run out for an assignment, but I'll definitely check with him about digitizing some of those oral histories. And I'm wondering if Langdon Opperman was possibly the woman you're trying to think of, thinking about. She did a lot with African-American neighborhoods, and it was early research that wasn't maybe as academic as you might have wanted it, but it was a lot of oral history, and it was interesting.
No, this wasn't the work of Langdon. No,
okay.
It's someone else. And I know that Mike really wants to get the Winston-Salem State interns involved because Winston-Salem State has the only really coherent public history program in the city. Wake Forest does not have a consistent real public history. They do public history projects sometimes, sort of co-curricular, but and of course Mike really wants to support our local HBCU. So so we were supposed to meet very soon again, that planning committee from use. So at least when I met with them, there was no discussion about bringing Wake Forest on board or anyone else, but maybe eventually, but they really want to be able to showcase the work of our public history program, and really maybe have UNCSA students who've already been working on it collaborate. So, but they really would like us to be able to showcase these women, and we don't know yet, how we'll do that. But we need to be thinking ahead again about collaborating and being able to collaborate now with Muse moving forward. And, they really prioritize Black history. They have actually opened up a whole space for the physical collection of our local African-American archive that, for instance, our wonderful Linda Dark works so much with cataloging there and others. And so they've really committed because we really needed a house for that incredible collection, that physical collection. So that will be permanently housed there. So any other comments about the Muse, our opportunities moving forward with Muse?
I just have one thought. Since the storyline, it may have been part of WFDD, and maybe that's the connection to Wake Forest. If the van indeed is over there, it's probably connected to WFDD, because I remember them playing some of those interviews. And so Dr. Villa-Gomez, I just, I'm all about tapping into people who have been involved and can be involved. And I think that I'll put it down on my list to inquire of WFDD because it doesn't hurt. They reach a whole different audience than WSSU. Yeah. And we really want our history to be citywide. And we have to be inclusive and use all of our resources. But I'll check with that and see if WFDD is the keeper. Or we'll also check with Larry. We'll send Larry an email and find out what's happening so we can make sure we're speaking the truth that it is. I don't want to speak out of turn and put misinformation out there, but we certainly would be able to investigate that and do that. Now, I have a question to the human relations staff. How are our interns coming and also their are they doing interviews? And I think I promised to set up one with Mr. CP Booker, who's 95. And so I do need to move on that at some point.
Thanks, Councilmember Scipio. And yeah, I'm jumping ahead because I had that as an agenda item. And I can tell you that we have had an intern this summer, Portia, who's been working on doing some interviews. And I want to defer to Erica because Erica was working closely with Portia on coordinating those. So Erica, can you chime in?
Absolutely. So we have met with Miss Naomi Jones.
Oh, great.
And we sat and talked with her we interviewed for about an hour, but I think we talked for another half an hour. She is an absolute joy. And so we are working with Dr. Black, I believe, to set up more interviews because we didn't want to overtire her or anything like that. Maybe weekly, possibly, however that looks. But she has a whole lot of information to give, and we're actually setting up a time to go over to the resource center that's named after her. So that has gone well.
So I have some other 95-year-olds, 96-year-olds, and 87-year-olds, some of those seniors that we need to, I can help you get into capturing their stories. It's amazing how many people we still have, but what typically happens is they go very quickly if we don't get on their schedule. And some of them, their cognitive ability is still very much there. I'm interviewing two ladies tomorrow, Ms. Maurice Johnson and Ms. Marion Winbush. But both of them are school teachers, former school teachers, and Ms. Johnson was a public school teacher, and she actually retired from Winston-Salem State years ago. Very much still involved in the community, but I'm interviewing them because I want to name the track at Happy Hill Park after their husbands, who started some of the first African-American track clubs in the city. The husbands have moved on to their eternal rest, but we're doing the viewpoint from the wives. What did it take to make it all happen? And so that one is being done, and that one will be submitted to our digital archive. So there are a couple of other people I would love to interview. Mr. Dorick might be willing to do that too, is his neighbor, Mrs. Marie Matthews, who is in her 90s, and she has some interesting stories to tell. And down the street, we have two sisters. One of them could be interviewed and give us a good interview. That's Jane Williams. She was a professor at Winston-Salem State in math. but her sister is really a jewel, but her hearing has declined. So getting their family story is very important. And Miss Wilson, how about your Aunt Dot? I think she would be a jewel to interview if possible.
I'll be glad to work on it with someone. Her hearing too might be an issue, but
okay,
not as bad, but I think with some planning and giving her the questions ahead of time, that would help.
Yeah, because I think your family story hasn't been documented either. Thank you. And they were Miss Wilson's been holding out. If nothing more, she needs to be interviewed, and her brother, because her grandparents were very involved in this community, and all of her aunts. And so those are family stories that need to not go untold. And almost everyone on this committee that I know, Mr. Dora has a family story that needs to be told. I'm putting all of you guys on the spot. Mr. Scales, Mr. Fulton, Beverly Williams, all of them, they have unique family stories. They were all in different parts of this city that we need to capture those memories. Because if the children don't tell the stories of the parents when the parents have gone on, it falls to the grandchildren. And every generation you get away from the first generation, you're going to miss something significant. And so we need to tell these stories of and I want to do that with the committee. If nothing more this year, Dr. Villa-Gomez, you make sure everybody on that committee tells their story.
Absolutely, Councilperson Scipio. And I did want to go back and say that I also agree we have to be as inclusive as possible and bring in as many people and partners to collaborate with us. This AAHI, our mission, our vision is my priority, and I've made it a priority of our history program, and it's a priority of my department. But if I'm called, I'll be there to support, and sometimes other groups will take over, and they should. And so we're not going to homestead, but we will also always support and facilitate. I will make sure to, both Mike and I have been in and out of town, but we are supposed to be meeting early this month, maybe even next week, with this initial team. So I'll make sure to get the name and find out more details about this collection he mentioned, and I'll let the committee know. But my last item is really there to highlight that Mr. Flynn and I are really going to focus our interns on oral history. So we'll be having them do oral history collection over the fall, but we are reviving the actual oral history class. And so hopefully we'll have a whole group of students. And then I will, if Councilperson Scipio or any of the committee members say, hey, we need your students to do this, I'm going to work that into, what they are expected to do to pass the class. So we should really have a good group of students to help with this. And that will really, connect the younger generation with the elders. And so we are committed to that absolutely in this school year. So thank you for challenging us in that wonderful way. And so I am done with everything that I needed to bring to your attention. So thank you for listening. Unfortunately, it went on because I tried to keep my promise to be brief and I wasn't, so I apologize. But now we will hear from our wonderful director.
Thank you, Chair Villagomez. I'm going to be very brief. One thing I've already touched on, which was the introduction of the new Marketing and Communications Department's leadership. It's just that we have Mary Junko with us today, and not Veronique George, but Veronique did get in touch with me this afternoon to let me know she had a conflict. So I was happy to know that she is interested in working with the AAHI, and hopefully she'll be able to join for the next meeting. Department intern updates, that we already did. And the vice chair piece, I know Chair Villagomez, this was probably more for your section than mine. So did you want to speak to the fact that, do you want to talk about the vice chair
Yes,
position? Okay.
Thank you. So I believe a few months ago, I planted that seed, and we have not had a vice chair since we lost our beloved Miss Jane Penn. So I am hoping and praying that that there's interest, and one of you would be happy to move into that position. So I was hoping we might even be able to vote today and do nominations, but since we don't have a quorum, we'll table that until our next meeting. But if you would like to be the vice chair, you can send me a note, but we will call for nominations and do our elections. So I think it's going to be very helpful, just in case I can't make it for one reason or another, emergencies come up, then it would be very helpful. And I would love to have Miss Jane really helped me so much. And and I'm not going to be chair forever. It wouldn't be fair. I would love to be, because this project's so close to my heart and soul, but it wouldn't be fair. And so someone eventually will rotate into this position. And so I think being vice chair would be a good sort of training. And so I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that we can vote and have a vice chair next month.
Thank you, Chair Villagomez. And the remainder was city staff updates. And so I don't know if Mary Junka or either, I think we have Tracy Phillips up here from IS, and we have Jackie Phillips Hayes up here. If you all have any updates from the city staff, would you please feel free to share at this point?
I don't think I have anything. I actually have more notes from you all of things I want to check on and get back to you on.
Awesome.
And Wanda,
fair enough.
This is Tracy. I don't have any updates from IS, but we are certainly here to support you guys. If you guys need anything, just reach out.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you. And thank you, Mary. So Chair Villagomez, that does it for the director's updates and the city staff updates.
Okay, well, I think just one other item, and it can't be actionable today since we don't have a quorum, and I know Miss Sheila had to leave to get back to her work, but we need to think about how we want to meet. So we need to think what will be the wish of the whole committee in terms of meeting on Zoom or meeting in person. It would be wonderful to move in the direction of meeting in person at least some of the time. So be thinking about that. And if we have a quorum next month, then we can vote on that and discuss that. And if you have thoughts on that, please email me and Ms. Wanda. And if you have suggestions, of course, we're all ears. I did want to note that our next meeting will be Wednesday, September 6th. Are there any other discussion points, suggestions, or concerns before we adjourn for today? All right. Well, thank you all. I am officially calling our August 2023 meeting to a close. I wish you all well. Take very good care and reach out if you have anything you need me to help you with. I'm here for you. So take good care. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.